What was I playing the other day? Okay, you know what? I wasn't going to talk about this, but here, there you go. I'm changing topics. Guaranteed song gold here. Okay, so hey, so I know I've been gone a while. Yeah, I think I've said it before. Part the flip side of me, people are asleep at my house, so this is even a quiet one. Um, uh, the flip side of me just doing these things really unscriptedly is sometimes I just go through a phase, I guess, where I don't feel like doing them. So that explains the last couple months since I've done it. And I know the viewership sucks when I come back after a break. So, but whatever. Um, uh, yeah. Uh, what I was going to say, I was going to talk about something else, and then I just started playing something that reminded me of another thing I may as well talk about. You want guaranteed song idea. You know how we've talked about in other videos. By the way, I mean, if you're just jumping in, you should watch the earlier videos. I mean, maybe the first couple of them were like, here's a little trick or whatever, you know, like they weren't big picture things, you know. It was more like, here's a trick I don't see people doing. You should take it and run with it. The ones shortly after that, I don't remember exactly. Video 4, 5, 6, something in there. We start talking about way bigger picture things. That's kind of when I figured out, yeah, this is kind of the sweet spot. This is what I want to talk about. If you haven't gone, because I talk to people a lot who ask questions that I feel like I've probably covered about the level that I would want to cover it in a previous video. So look through the earlier episodes, because in my opinion, those are the higher priority things, you know. I mean, improvising, like, you know, what to think of when improvising, how to play expressively, you know. And there's like what it means, like what even people mean by playing expressively, what they don't realize they mean, but what they're actually referring to, the tangible activities that they're referring to in someone's playing when they say that person plays expressively. Here are the tangible activities. Here's how to work on them and instantiate them in your playing. So as usual with me, it's about habit formation. And the same thing with the theory videos. I mean, it's about mental habit formation. These are the things you think in the order you should think them. You practice thinking them in that order until it's just a reaction, you know, until your ninja training takes over and you just kill a man without even thinking about it, you know, just because it had to be done, you know. So it's kind of like the that part from Tropic Thunder when Danny McBride's character asked Nick Nolte. Danny McBride's characters are always Danny McBride, as far as I can tell. So, I mean, they're always the same. But when he says, "What kind of sidearm are you carrying?" or whatever, and he says, "I don't know what it's called. I only know the sound it makes when it takes a man's life, or when it kills a man, whatever." I think I usually play at the beginning of these videos. You've heard all that. You've heard me play again plenty of times before, so who cares? Okay. So there was a time back in the 1900s. See, now I'm going to talk about the thing I originally thought I was going to talk about, not the thing I, at the last second, decided to talk about. That'll be a future video, hopefully soon, unless I go through one of those phases where I don't want to do it again. So far, this has been a 5-minute penalty kill. So I've gotten to nothing. So good. I'm obviously back in the swing of things. This is exactly the quality you expect. So that thing I said that was instant song ideas, that'll have to be in a future video. Um, Back in the 1900s, the 1990s, I was at I was in my first year or maybe second year of college. I think it was my first year of college. Um, this was 95, 96, 97, one of those 3 years. I'm sure it wasn't. Anyway, um, um, and I finally heard, speaking of mental habits, right? So it turns out all this time, I started playing in 1990, as a whatever year old I was, young, very, very young teenager. Actually, not quite a teenager, I guess. There you go. And so I'd been playing for 5, 6 years by this point, and somehow had gotten into the habit of not hearing all of the wrong noises I was making, all of the extra, not good extracurricular noises, but all the open strings that were going off when I was trying to play whatever lick I was trying to play. um, all the open strings, all the extra accidental notes that I was playing, I had developed a habit of just not even hearing those things. I really just didn't even notice it. I was hearing what I was intending to play. And somebody, when they heard me play, it was not a player. He was like, what are all of the extra things you're playing? You know, like he called it out. And all of a sudden I heard it. It's like, oh my gosh. Yeah, you're right. And so all of a sudden I went through this crisis. Well, maybe I suck after all. And what do I do about this? You know, and the what do I do about this thing is probably a lot harder. I mean, it was hard to find the answers to this in the 90s, where the answer was in guitar magazines somewhere, or maybe. And I feel like I found something. I always remembered finding something in a guitar magazine, but I've never seen a copy of it online, what I thought it was called, or anyway. Um, so I set out to changing my style. And if any of you, and so I fast forward to uh, early 2000s, I was at a shop here in town in Dallas. I was in Dallas by this point, and somebody had recommended me for a country gig, and at the time I didn't play country. Now I'm kind of a hack at it. Um, um, so at the time I didn't play country, and I told him, I was like, I don't play country. Why'd you recommend me for that? He's like, it doesn't matter. You're a clean player, and you sound, you know, whatever. But the clean player thing, that was the point of it. And I thought, that's interesting. And yeah, I'm glad somebody noticed I'm a clean player, because I mean, my chops aren't super clean, but what he meant was you sound like a pro, because what a pro sounds like is they're not making a bunch of extracurricular crap. You know, the note pops out with some confidence, and there's not extracurricular noises and wrong notes and open strings. Open strings are the big offender here, right? Um, so this can get you gigs, because this, even gigs aside, this can uh, set you apart. If you haven't already addressed these things, it's something you're going to have to address and not put off forever, because it requires a sort of revamp of your technique. And technique is all habit, right? And the longer you play with the technique you need to replace, the more habitual that becomes. So you may as well get to this pretty soon, if you haven't already. Some of you already have done this stuff. So, and you know what? If you have a different approach to this, put it in the comments. Like and subscribe down here, whichever side it's on. Uh, if you have a different way that you do this, tell everybody, right? So, but here's how you play cleanly, right? And it involves mainly a conspiracy between two. Part of this is going to depend on your picking technique, because gospel guy picking technique, I'm not sure how they do it. It's worth asking somebody. So if one of you plays like this, right, your techniques, your approach to this is going to be different. I'm not sure what you do. I assume it's mostly your left hand. should comment how you do it. But with my technique, which is my crappy picking hand, and what it is I do, here's what it mainly comes down to: two things, right here, and your first finger. And here's what I mean. Let's say I'm playing this note on the G string. Automatically, now this wasn't how it used to be, but in this year in the 90s when I had this crisis, this is what it changed to. So instead of playing on your fingertip, I mean, most of the time you're probably not going to play on your fingertips. That may be a surprise to some people, but I know your first day with the Mel Bay book and you learn the C chord, you need it on the fingertips for the most part. But even then, look, that's not on its fingertip. So, in fact, it's not like it's laying down either. I'm playing on the finger's butt. Instead of playing here, I'm playing back here. And it's enough. I just sit the finger's rear end onto the string, and it's in a place that it bumps the next string, right? Most of the time, though, this honor falls to your first finger. So let's say I'm playing single note stuff. I'm playing single note stuff. Maybe these fingers are on their fingertips. This one almost never is. So so the first finger's job, we're going to summarize it this way. It bumps your first finger, whatever note you're playing, whatever string you're playing, your first finger bumps into the first string this way and every string that way. So if I'm playing the G, now notice my thumb is getting these other ones, but we'll talk about that in a second. So my first finger's job is almost never play on its fingertip, on the tip. It bumps the first string that way and every string that way. Notice if I hit that, aside from me just my proximity to the microphone, you're not going to hear much from that. You can't hear when I play a string that I don't mean to play, right? It's not enough that I'm holding the right note. I'm preventing all the wrong notes from being played, right? Mainly through my left hand first finger. Left hand first finger bumps into the first string that way and every string that way, which means, at least hypothetically, if you're playing the A string, the guitar should be on lockdown. Now, part of it's just the sheer impetus of impetus. Okay, here's an interesting thing. Was that who was that? Dang it, Thomas Bradwardine, I think. So Newton gets credit, which I mean, partly rightly so, for the concept of inertia, right? The idea that in Aristotelian physics, something wouldn't just continue in a direction, right? It would stop, or if it's made of dirt, it falls to the ground. That's where all dirt goes. If it's made of fire, it goes up. But bodies, aside from the fifth element, ether, wouldn't just like move laterally. They go up or down. And so if you fired an arrow, it's actually, I forget how exactly the mechanic. Anyway, but it's actually, anyway. So Newton gets credit for inertia, the notion that actually a body will just keep traveling in the direction unless acted on, right? It will just indefinitely travel in the same direction. Now, obviously, for Newton, bodies are acted on. They're acted on by gravity, right? But outside of gravity, which, by the way, he never defines what it is. What's his name? The popularizer. He knows more. I say popularizer. He knows more of the science than I do. I'm a philosophy of science guy. Anyway, says Newton was embarrassed because he couldn't come up with a theory of gravity. Newton actually thought theorizing, right, postulating unobservable entities and processes to explain the ones that you can, that the phenomena, the processes, the motions that we can see in the world. He thought that coming up with theoretical explanations like that was not what science was supposed to be, so he wouldn't do it. He fiddled with theories but he didn't endorse one. Anyway, so it's not that he couldn't come up with a theory of gravity. He really just didn't. He didn't believe that that was doing science. So, though he believed that. Well, anyway, a lot of people still believed in what's called astrology at the time. So it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't perfectly clear that the motion of the planets didn't affect things here on Earth, including human brains. So anyway, this is a terrible channel. This is terrible. Oh yeah, so Newton has inertia, but really Thomas Bradwardine in the Middle Ages, a lot of what the Renaissance scientists took credit for, and later than just the Renaissance, was actually the scientific revolution. By the way, I don't know that most scholars even think that there was such a thing that rightly deserves to be called that. Anyway, sorry, I can't chase every rabbit here, but the Newton's notion of inertia is heavily borrowed. I don't know though if Newton knew of this man's work, but Thomas Bradwardine in the 1200s. Anyway, so there was some significant work that was done in the Middle Ages. Some very significant work. Yeah, the Middle Age bashing is out of date. It was a period of progress and enlightenment. So there you go. That had to do with, oh yeah, okay. Hey, I actually remember this. I'm playing that, and the sheer mass of the string moving. It's an amount of force that's sometimes hard. So, but let's face it, that's when you're not often gonna play something like that. But your left hand's first finger, its job is to bump the first string that way and every string that way. No matter where you go, first string that way, every string that way. Sometimes that honor will fall to a different finger. Usually it doesn't. By the way, that means, let's say I'm playing this. I don't play like this. You can search through any of my videos. You won't see me with just that finger down, right? Unless, some things happen, like you pause it right at the right nanosecond or something. I'm not going to play that note with that. I accumulate fingers typically. So if I'm just going to play a third finger note out of the blue, these two are behind it for a couple of reasons. I can bend from that, right? I can do the good vibrato. There's a video on vibrato. Go back and watch it. The good vibrato. But I make I don't remember if I talk about this exact technique. Did I? I'll have to watch it. I'll need to watch some of these old videos to know what else I need to talk about. But notice the good technique. There are other fine techniques, but this, I get a lot. You can do a lot of stuff from this. A lot of different vibratos. So, vibratos plural, right? If you're not used to thinking in that, go back and watch that video. It's how I play. It's a huge part of what I'm intentionally doing when I play. So, okay, man, this is a very inefficient video. Just any old thing I see that I want to talk about, then I'm going to do it. So, yeah. So let's say I'm playing this. My first finger is at least, let's say I'm playing a third finger note. My first finger is down there, bumping the first string that way and every string that way, right? What about the other strings? So in the case of the G string, these are on lockdown. You can't hear them. What about these two? Well, sometimes it'll be my thumb. Sometimes it's my right hand, depending on what my right hand is doing. So if I'm just playing, so you see what happens. So let's say I'm playing the B string. My first finger has the first string that way and every string that way, which is just that one. So my right hand palm or side or something has these other strings. As I come down, my right hand's got to move onto the guitar. So I'm here. Notice my right hand's out of a job. My palm is out of a job. As I move up, not the greatest technique while I'm sitting there talking about it, but does that make sense? So left hand first finger usually has every string that way. First string that way from relative to the string that I'm playing. My left hand first finger is bumping the first string that way and every string that way. My right hand meat has got the rest, right? And as that moves, they're just moving together, right? Now, sometimes I know that my right hand's got to leave bass and maybe smack the strings or something, and I'm pretty sure keep in mind on guitar, you don't have to accidentally hit the string for it to make noise, right? So unlike the piano, especially the digital ones, they don't make a note unless you hold them, right? On guitar, they're pretty much all ringing, right? You have to prevent all the strings from playing on guitar. It sucks. It's a curse. But so let's say I know or my thumb is on the job here, right? My thumb has come over to take this is place, right? It's the Stevie Ray Vaughan. Right. Notice, right? My left hand's getting everything but the thumb is getting more aggressively muting everything. But as I go up to the higher strings, my thumb comes over to take up for it, right? You start playing like this, you may start hating, you may start getting a little pickier about what necks you play. I don't know. I mean, I just like round ones and kind of fat, So that job is either my left hand thumb or my right hand palm, or if maybe, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much, I bet if you look through all the old videos, you'll see me doing one of those two things 90% of the time. On a chord thing, well, let's see. Right, if I'm doing an arpeggiating thing. Anyway, so you see it at first, as with any habit, it takes intentional repeated action, right? It's not be a habit at first. You're gonna have to sit and think about it and make your hands do it. And yes, that means be pretty intolerant of your first finger just landing on its tip. Like, I mean, this really feels weird to me. I'll do it as part of a chord, playing on my first finger on the tip. But other than that, other than being part of a chord, it's definitely not something that it's used to doing. So my first finger is rarely on the tip. By the way, in some chords, as I showed earlier with the G, most chords, you're going to end up bumping the string that you don't want, or strings that you don't want, right? So on an A chord, this should be part of your A chord. This is a more elementary version of this. I realize that plenty of you have already approached this, but on a D chord, usually that's how I play it. And then if I want to do the over F sharp thing, I can grab that pretty easily. You know that, what's it called? Exit music for a film? It's I mean, the way I figured out the chords. This is this part. I love that. That's the only example I know of. Oh, and We escape. We escape. Pack. Like it goes from A sus, A minor. It's awesome. That's really cool. I don't know. I don't know another piece that does that. Anyway, kind of cool. So that's that though. Left hand first finger takes most of the responsibility here, and it's supplemented by your left hand palm or sometimes your right hand thumb, depending on what your left hand's doing. Dudes who pick like this, if you got some insight, I've always wondered, like, what does Vernon Reed, George Benson, how are they keeping clean? I assume it's more left hand thumb, but I haven't really looked closely. There's got to be some way, right? Especially, I mean, like, Vernon Reed, right? I mean, if you're playing with that much gain, you got to be keeping it quiet somehow. So anyway, I'm sure all it would take would be me just YouTubing a Vernon Reed video. So, yes. Do you have any questions or things that should be future videos? So, yeah, 26 minutes and maybe 3 minutes of content. So, it's a pretty good ratio. I'm back, baby. If anything, this season of Since I'm Invisible, it's going to be the best yet.